Welcome to the Game Inspectors podcast. My name's Sam.
I am Ben.
And we just got done watching Jobs, the film with, the one with Ashton Kutcher playing Steve Jobs. It is like 1:15 in the morning. I'm super tired, so we're going to try to make this a brief podcast. So first off, Ben, do you own any Apple products?
Oh, I own many.
What do you own?
Apple runs my house. I have 5 iOS devices, including 2 iPad minis, and 5, yes, or not 5, it's 1 in the morning, don't judge me, 3 iPod Touches. Over the course of, where do I start? All right. Over the course of that, I've also gone through 3 other iPod. In total, we've gone through 3 other iPods, and I also own a Mac.
Yeah. So you would say Steve Jobs has made an impact on your life, right?
Recently, more
Okay.
recently.
Yeah. So I've been reading reviews about this movie, and I've noticed people are saying that it is not a good movie because Ashton Kutcher does not portray Steve Jobs in its correct form. Which I have to say, who is qualified to play Steve Jobs? Not really anyone. So
Steve Jobs is qualified to play Steve Jobs, but we don't have Steve Jobs. I'm sorry.
So there's kind of a problem there. So let's start off by let's start talking about the movie. So the movie basically starts with Steve Jobs, Ashton Kutcher playing Steve Jobs in his last 10 years. First showing off the iPod, and he's got the
original. He's got the gray beard. He's bald, and he is every bit as spunky as we all remember him.
Yes. It is the Steve Jobs we all have came to know and love, with every reveal of an iProduct. So then it goes to Steve Jobs passed out on a couch at his college. He had just dropped out, and now he's just kind of sitting in on classes.
I believe it was in a cafe also. Like, wasn't it just some random cafe he was
he's just
passed
kind of
out in?
Passed out, on campus, wherever.
It's
So
in there somewhere.
he's trying to figure out what to do with his life, finds some girl on campus. Yeah, she's a very beautiful woman.
We're jumping ahead, man.
Yes. He talks to her for about 5 seconds about the book she's reading, which is on calligraphy. That'll come to an importance here in a little bit.
And then he gets laid.
Yes. Ends up dropping acid with this girl.
Yes. And his friend.
And his friend and his girlfriend, not the girl he just slept with.
No,
Turns out he's got another woman. So
are you sure?
yeah, there's the woman
I was under the understanding it was his, like, the way I understood. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But, like, the way I interpreted it is that, like, whenever he said with my girlfriend, like, he was implying with the girl he just slept with. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That'd be kind of weird to just drop that in there for no reason.
Yeah, I think that was just that was 5 seconds I didn't notice too well. So that's up for stipulation in the future. So
We'll find out.
He ends up going to India with his good friend because he ends up going to a class that has some Buddhist monk.
Wasn't it the calligraphy class?
No, the calligraphy class had some American teaching it, but it was like they were doing the meditation out in the middle of the field. So he goes to India with his friend. They do all the hippie stuff that most people did in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Next place you see him, he's got an internship at Atari, and he's all
he is angry with the development, the skills of the developers that are working at Atari. To them, the programming they're working with is state of the art. They're doing something amazing. It's not good enough for Steve. He's ambitious. He wants color. He wants stuff to explode. He wants Halo Reach right now. But
and Atari couldn't do that, so he gets all mad.
Atari couldn't deliver.
And so they give him his own project, and this is where we first see Wozniak come in, because Steve Jobs has a deadline that he's got a crunch time to get to, so he gets Woz to come in and help him, and he kind of gives Woz the short end of the stick and gives him $350 of the $5,000 he made.
Yeah, he was a jerk. He flat out lied to this guy. He's like, he asked him how much, like the other guy asked him how much they were getting paid, and he's like, $700, when really he was been given $5,000
to do this project. Yeah. So that kind of rekindles the relationship between Woz and Steve. So Steve shows up to Woz's house one day. He's like, dude, guess what? We got another project. And while they're there, Steve notices something that Woz is working on that's kind of cool. Care to elaborate, Ben?
Well, what he was looking at was the original computer. Not the original computer, but the original personal computer that was displayed, very compact. Didn't have those freaking, gigantic servos that they had way back when.
Yeah. Yeah, so it has a screen. You can see what you're working on while you're working on it, which is this big thing. So he tells Wallace, we're going to go to the homebrew convention and we're going to show off this piece of technology because it is beautiful and people need to see it. On the car ride there, they come up with the name Apple Computers, which Wallace completely already says, Steve, really? Apple? You're a Beatles fan. These things, you can't do this. We'll get sued. And he says, no, don't care. All right, so
no one did.
He goes to Homebrew. They fail in the presentation. It's not too good, but he has one person interested. It's someone who owns like a Radio Shack store, but more for people that make their own computers. They have kids and whatnot. So this gentleman's like, all right, I'll give you $50. I'll give you $50 a unit for 400 units. And Steve's like, no, I want.
It wasn't $50.
No, it was not $50.
It was $400.
$400 a unit for 100 units. No money up front. He's like, no, I want $500 for 100 units, a third up front. And he's like, okay, I'll give you 90 days. And Steve's like, I'm going to be all cocky and say 60 days right now. I'll get it done for you.
Cash money.
Wallace gets mad. He doesn't want to
like,
do it. 60. Yeah. So they set up shop in his parents' house, and they realize 60 days is kind of a short amount of time to make 400 computers, or 100 units. So
they realize Steve may have bitten off more than he can chew.
So he grabs a couple friends that are good with computers, and they hire them to help him do this. So they build all the computers, take it to the shop. They're like, yeah, I got it done. And the guy's like, I told you computers, not circuit boards. I wanted the screen. I wanted the keyboard. I wanted the complete package deal. And he's like,
basically what they did was they built a circuit board. It was, at that time, it was the most advanced circuit board that anyone's seen so far. But, without the screen and the keyboard, you can't really tell, can you?
Mm-hmm. So he's kind of... They get him to accept the offer, and they get the money and whatnot. So this is where you first see that Steve Jobs is really good at marketing, because
he's a con
he's
man.
really good at marketing, but he's really good about lying about future. He says that just wait for the Apple II, which they hadn't even started on the Apple II yet.
By the time they finished the Apple II, they had made some money.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you what.
So they're working out of the shop, getting ready for the Apple II, but they need funding. So he's calling all these people. He's getting turned down. And this is where you finally see that Steve Jobs is, pardon my language, he's kind of an asshole, because he gets in an argument with some of his friends about how they're not working hard enough. And at the same time that he's complaining about this, a guy comes up who's ready to invest. He wants to invest $90,000 into the company, which is a big deal.
It's a large deal.
Mm-hmm. So they become partners with that guy. But in a way that Steve Jobs does a lot of marketing there, he requests a lot of things in the way of, like, interest after the sale, like commission and royalties after the sale that he can make extra money with. Really good at negotiating. This is where his marketing also shows up. Problem is, next time we find his girlfriend's pregnant.
Yeah.
And Steve Jobs not too happy about that, because he just got all these really cool deals, and
he suspects that she may have been cheating on him at some point.
Turns out not true.
No, it was not true.
It's his girl. It's his daughter.
It is his.
But he doesn't know this, so he kicks her out.
Kicks her on out.
Yes.
Whatever happened to that? Hold on, that kind of makes me. This brings up a question. You know that one guy who was like, what happened? Whenever he's like, Steve shouldn't treat you like that. What happened there?
I'm not too sure.
They never went anywhere with that.
I think they kind of suspected that it might have been his kid, but really it wasn't. That they might have been cheating with each other. No really clue. So with this emotional overcoming because his girlfriend's pregnant, he literally transforms into the present day Steve we see him. He grows up in this one moment. Okay.
Not entirely. He ain't. He hasn't been knocked down
He's still
yet.
kind of young and cocky, but he gets more mature. So they launched this monitor computer, and
they launched the Apple II.
They launched the Apple II. Well, they don't launch the Apple II yet. This is right after they launch Apple I, okay? And it's this big deal because it's got monitors. But the next fair they go to, everyone has monitor computers.
Everyone.
So it's not that big of a deal. But at this fair, he releases something revolutionary. It's the Apple II. They have the best booth. It's this beautiful thing because everyone else has these plain old cubicles.
Everyone has like a cardboard box
with a poster.
with a
And
poster.
Apple has this beautiful. It looks like a white building in the middle of this fair.
In the middle of
And
a
it is-
crowd.
and it's beautiful. He shows off the Apple II. He's got lots of applause. Okay, so they say for this Apple II to happen, we need to incorporate. So they incorporate the business, and let's see what happens next.
And now we're like
This
the
is
way,
full-
the way they did it. The applause. They zoomed in on Ashton Kutcher's face, and then we jumped forward in time.
Now it's about the beginning of the 80s. Apple has its own building. It's its own company.
It is its own thing.
And it starts off with Steve Jobs talking to a group of people about this computer. I think it's the Lisa. And there's this guy. Well, Steve is asking about, what kind of font types do we have? What typefaces do we have? And this guy's like, we don't have enough time to do typefaces. And
And he's like, get out.
yeah, undercutting Steve Jobs is not that good of an idea. So they kick him out. He's gone. He fires him. This is where you see he fires a lot of people.
He fires so many people.
This is where his a-hole personality starts coming out too.
He is ambitious. Very ambitious.
Yeah.
It almost destroyed him.
Mm-hmm.
Almost destroyed him.
So next thing we see is he's at a meeting with a couple friends. Not a couple friends, but a couple business partners about going public in the stocks. Okay. But the problem is he also has at that same time a meeting with one of his really good friends about something which we're not too sure about.
I don't know what happened. They
Uh-huh,
never
but
did. He just kind of walked out.
Yeah, he misses his friends, this meeting with his friend, which it ruins the relationship between those two. But they go public, lots of money. That's basically what happens. So we next see Woz come in to Steve Jobs' office, and Woz is talking about how he started with Apple and with Steve because he viewed Steve and his group of guys as this group of cool kids who were really enthusiastic about what he wanted to do. That's why he had left HP, which was a really secure job at the time.
It was a pretty sweet deal there.
So Woz announces that he's leaving Apple to do some other business ventures that we don't really elaborate too much of the film. This gets Steve emotionally distraught, and
this opens Steve's eyes. This is warning him that he is going to get knocked down.
He goes home, he shaves his beard, he becomes more mature, but he's still not mature enough to run a company.
He's not ready yet.
Now we jump to 1982. Steve goes into a meeting with the board, and they drop Steve from the Lisa project because he's too ambitious for this project. He keeps wanting to make improvements, and it's pushing back the release date of the Lisa because his idea for this perfect computer is just not happening very well. So he goes home while he's all distraught. He reads through his mail, and he's got a letter from his daughter, Lisa. So he's really I'm trying to think. He gets kind of emotional about that because he
starts to open his eyes to the fact that he needs to start cooling his jets, or he's gonna lose it. He's gonna die. He is going to die physically and I don't know. I'm going for it's 1 in the morning. Shut up.
Yeah, 1 in the morning. We're all tired, so God forgive us at the moment. I'm reading notes from my iPhone, which I couldn't have done without Steve Jobs.
Oh yeah, thank you, Steve.
Yes. So he gets a phone call a little bit later from one of his friends. It says the Macintosh team is needing a little bit of help. It might be a good project for him to go and work on.
Everyone loves their Macs.
So he goes in, and the leader of the group is kind of not there. He's at some meeting. So Steve,
he's elsewhere.
He's elsewhere, not working on the Mac. So Steve comes in. He's like, taking over this project. I'm in charge of it now. Let's get this done, okay? He doesn't want them to do fine on this computer.
He wants to do amazing, spectacular, blow everyone away.
He doesn't want it to be another Apple II. He doesn't like that they're just going to work with this one computer that's selling good and just keep going with that. He doesn't want them to stop innovating. So he's going around the office, the Apple office, finding new people to come into the Mac team. He's doing a recruiting thing. And this is where you see the idea that Steve Jobs' team on the Mac was the pirates versus the Navy, and the Navy was the Apple. That's where this whole, the pirates of Silicon Valley and whatnot. So It goes on to that, and he goes to recruit Woz, and he's talking to Woz. Actually, had Woz left yet? No, Woz
You
hadn't
just
left yet.
completely jumped like a million years, dude.
Woz, God, Woz hadn't left yet.
How did you do that?
I don't know. Well, he was talking about this, but
He
no, this
was.
is not when he left. So Woz is still with the team. Sorry, I made a mistake. Woz is still with Apple. He hasn't left yet. Spoiled the movie. I'm sorry.
We're already talking
Yeah.
the entire movie already.
Okay, so he goes and asks Woz if he wants to join the Mac team, and he's like, "You're really bored, aren't you?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm bored. So you want to join the Apple team? Sure, I'll go ahead. I need something to do." So, where were we at?
They innovate the Mac. The Mac is the best thing in the entire world. But then, I tell you, then enter timeout. I don't know where you are in your notes, but I'm just going off of mine. Enter Sir Arthur. His name is Arthur. I don't remember what his last name is. He was a jerk. He was very, very narrow-minded.
Are you talking about the old guy in
I'm
glasses,
talking
right?
about old guy in glasses. This guy
Was a dick.
He was a dick.
Uh-huh.
He was a
So,
dick.
he comes in, he's like, "Oh, Steve Jobs, you're not..."
Your Macs do not have a profit, will not be able to turn a profit. Therefore, we cannot use this. We must go with the leases. And then Steve Jobs is like, "Screw the leases. They suck."
But, so, Steve finally says, "Okay, I'm too young to be running this company. Let me bring in someone else." His name's John Scully. He
worked with Pepsi.
He worked with Pepsi as the CEO. He was head of marketing there. So what happens is he brings in John Scully, and he says no one ever remembers the world's best, soda salesman. And he's talking about, and he says his way of getting John Scully onto Apple and leaving Pepsi is, "Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world?"
Throw down your nets and follow me.
Yes. So, enter the Macintosh commercial, the 1984 ad, the one it was debuted during a Super Bowl. It's the, well, no, it wasn't during a Super Bowl. It was during the playoffs, because well, it might have been during the Super Bowl, because the Super Bowl at that time might have been in January, because it was releasing January 24th. So, they at the same meeting where they debuted the ad, John Scully says the Mac price has increased, and so Steve's all pissed off because it's out of consumer hands.
And I will say, Macs are pretty pricey, but
Great computers.
They are wonderful computers.
Mm-hmm.
They do their jobs. I love my Mac. I've had it for like 2 weeks, and I'm in love.
Mm-hmm. So the next thing we see, because the Mac is really high priced, we see that Bill Gates has kind of stolen the idea of
scumbag Bill Gates.
He's kind of stolen the idea of the Mac's interface and the whole operating system and used it for Microsoft. What a big surprise! So Steve Jobs is really mad. Not liking this.
Oh, he's very mad. This is probably the most
mad
I've seen him during the entire movie.
He calls Bill Gates and he just cusses him out. He's so furious that he steals this. He threatens to sue him and bring a lawsuit against Microsoft because of this whole software dispute.
And this is where he gets booted out. This is where Steve gets booted out.
He goes to a meeting and they tell him that this whole lawsuit thing is they're losing him money. This is going to be the first quarter they had ever shown a loss of money. This is where Wozniak leaves because he sees the boat sinking. He wants to go do something else. Cool fact for you, if you decide to type in Woz, W-O-Z, into your Apple product, it autocorrects automatically to Wozniak. Kind of a cool little nod to Wozniak.
It's like, good old Steve Jobs. Even in death, he's nodding to his friends.
So he's trying to call these people to say he's sorry about him, and you see that no one's answering. This is just something I kind of picked up with. No one's answering their phones, and I think that's kind of cool because no one's answering their home phones. What if there was a mobile phone?
What if there was a phone? But well, I mean, there were already phones before the iPhone.
So, I think my personal opinion, it was kind of nodding towards the iPhone or mobile phones or whatever. So, he's getting a meeting, and they say he's his own worst enemy in Apple, and he's not going to be a good person to lead this company. So, they finally vote him out of Apple, and his best friend who said he would vote to keep him in votes him out. A betrayal against Steve. So Steve leaves Apple and drives to his parents' house where he started a shop. sits down at the table and he. There's so many feels.
There were so many feels. It was like
sits down at the work desk. His dad comes out and he just starts crying. Sits his head in his dad's lap and they just sit there and they cuddle for a moment, just trying to figure out. Cuddle's kind of a bad word.
was
But
a
his dad
terrible
kind
word.
of consoles him there for a moment, like it's okay, bud. You're still a billionaire. You're good, man.
Yeah, he's got some cash.
It's still got some Apple stock. So you see it jump ahead about 10 years. Steve Jobs is now the head of
he's running Next now.
Next Computers, which is a really cool computer company, but it wasn't working out too well.
And at this time, this is where he cleans his act up.
He becomes adult. Yeah. He's got his family.
He's got his family back together from that girlfriend that he kicked out. He got her back.
They're back together. They've got 3 kids. They're living out in the middle of I don't know. It's not in the middle of nowhere.
It's not in the middle of nowhere, but it's in suburbia.
Yes, he's got a big house. He's farming. He's all nutritional and whatnot.
He's got some gardening going down.
So Apple's failing, and they decide we're going to acquire Next Computers. So now Steve Jobs is back in Apple. He's not really in charge, but he's kind of working with Next. He's talking to this guy about the Mac computers, the next generation of Macs. This guy draws up these pictures of these beautiful computers. It's like everything's in one. The speaker's going to be in it. There's colorful things. And I remember a quote of Steve Jobs talking about these Macs. They're all colorful. He says, they're so beautiful you kind of want to lick them.
Yes.
It looks like a lollipop. You kind of want to lick them.
Mine's not colorful.
Yeah, it's just gray.
It's gray, but it's beautiful whenever you open it up. Retina display.
So people start... They still see it's still failing even though they acquired Next. So they notice something's wrong with the CEO, so they start negotiations with Steve Jobs to get him back into the job as CEO.
They want their CEO back.
And
they're jumping back to that kid. They were drawing up designs. It was run by some kid. He was a young guy. He was new. And here's Steve Jobs again. He goes, why are you still here? Like as in fired, because he says like the exact same quote at the beginning of the movie.
Why are you staying in this company? You know it's failing. Why are you staying here? And he's like, well, I noticed that you're doing something. You do what we stick with the image of what Apple used to be. We still hold hope that Apple can become what it was originally founded for.
He gets it right on the nail and blesses Steve Jobs' heart.
Mm-hmm. So he's still not CEO yet, but he's sitting out at a table. He's listening to a CD player, and he's saying it's a crap product because he can't pause it very well. The buttons are failing. It's kind of a node to, hey, he's one day going to create something.
Give me an iPod.
He's one day going to create something pretty awesome.
Fun fact about that though, any iOS past iOS 5 sucks. I like it.
You don't like it? You don't like iOS? You don't like the new iOS?
Like with the iPad, it runs just fine. Like it's got a better processor than my iPod does.
Well, I have iOS 5 on my phone, but it works pretty fine.
iOS 5, like iOS 7, I believe it's on. I don't like it. It's just my my hardware. It's not good right now. I don't have my iPod on me, but like sometimes I'll have trouble if the songs won't stop. It's weird.
Yeah. So back to the movie. So he goes into a meeting and they kind of pull this switcheroo kind of thing. The CEO's like, Steve Jobs is not doing a good job in his current position, so we need to drop him from his current position. And one of the guys that wants Steve Jobs as CEO says, I completely agree with you. What do you think, Steve? And Steve's like, I agree.
Yes,
and
also.
I agree that I don't need to be in my current position.
And the CEO's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Wait, what? Why is Steve agreeing to this?
Why is everyone agreeing?
So Steve, he talks about his mission statement. He's like, I want to make Apple cool again. I want to. What's going to happen is we're going to
receive notifications.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. What happens is they're going to look at all the products they have right now. They're going to focus everything on the Mac. Because the Mac is the future. It's the personal computer. It's what Apple was originally founded on. We're going to drop all other projects to get rid of them.
Get them
and
out of here.
You know what else we're going to get rid of? The current CEO. Because he sucks.
Yeah.
He's not a good CEO.
Get out of here.
So he's gone. Now
now
Steve Jobs is interim CEO.
Woo!
He's not really the official CEO, but he's going to become the CEO.
And he's ready. He's ready. He's mature. He's got he knows what he's doing.
He's ready. His first job as interim CEO.
He's ready.
His first job as interim CEO. He fires the entire board.
The entire board's gone.
So
Get
basically,
him out of here.
Apple's chain of command is started from scratch. It's a new company, and this is where we see Apple become it's the product that we know of it today.
Here's where we go.
And that's where it ends. It ends with Steve Jobs talking to a group of people about... He was doing kind of like a recording at a radio station. He's talking about how... God, what was he talking about?
He was being inspirational. You gotta never stop improving. You gotta keep innovating.
He says, the people who are too crazy for this world or too crazy for their ideas are the exact people we need for this world. And it cuts off of that and it shows a couple pictures of the original Apple team that was originally hired for that garage crew.
And they were accurate.
They were really good at hiring people. They were really good at hiring people to portray these people.
Casting was wonderful.
Yeah. Steve Jobs was questionable, but who could really play Steve Jobs? No one's really qualified for it. I liked Ashton Kutcher. He was a good Steve Jobs.
He was a good Steve. I don't think they could have done any better. You couldn't put someone like Robert Downey Jr. in there. He's just not right. As good as an actor as Robert is,
he couldn't be a Steve Jobs.
He couldn't be a Steve Jobs.
So it is now 1:40 in the morning.
Now hold on a second. What was your personal? Drop the notes. Drop everything.
Dropping the notes. Dropping the iPhone. Okay.
Dropping the iPhone. Screw everything. What was your personal opinion of the movie? Did you like it? Was it inspiring? Was it?
I liked it. I against everyone that's done bad reviews against this movie, I love it. I mean, it's a really good portrayal. I see Steve Jobs' cockiness and his need for perfection and his overall assholiness.
He was a dick.
He was not a good person. We see that come out in a correct amount. But we also see the good side of him. We see how he finally becomes a good father. He becomes a great company leader, and just a great overall person, an innovator. What's your view, Penn?
All right, my opinion. I liked it. It was inspirational. It made me want to go build a computer. Well, no, it didn't. But, it made me want to go do something that is important, that's going to be good. And, I thought, going into this movie, I thought it would be it's Apple, it's about Apple, so they're going to do everything they can to make Apple look great. No,
kind of just a big old advertisement for Apple.
Yeah, exactly. No, Steve Jobs was a dick at some points. He was not Jesus at all. He was not a Jesus.
Speaking of that, there's a point where he comes into the Mac group, the group that's working on Mac. He comes in from a short period that he's been gone, and he walks in, and the guy that's working on the Macs, he's like, Jesus! He gets up, and he's like, and Steve Jobs is like, nope. Just Steve. Which you can kind of compare Steve Jobs to kind of like a god. I'm not gonna say he's.
That was a very bad thing to say. Cut that out.
I'm not saying like a religious god, but I'm just saying people put him at a high level of importance, not in a religious way. I'm not dissing God or anything.
The best thing to do is just move on.
Yeah, I'm just gonna move on.
Just move on.
Uh-huh.
Just move on.
Okay.
You can't save that. It'll be all right.
Mm-hmm. So, 1:41 in the morning. I'm tired. You tired, Ben?
I'm tired. Take me home, dude.
Okay, I'm gonna take you home. This concludes the Game Inspectors podcast. I'll see you guys next time. Maybe with Ben, maybe with not. I don't know. I'll be here. I mean, I'm the one that owns the computer and the microphone. So, see you guys next time.
Wait. Before we go, I must mention that we are recording on Windows. I'm sorry, Steve. I will fix that next time.
All right. I'll see you guys next time.
Screw Bill Gates.